is we're going to have some very short readings from a couple of people that have been part of this journey with me. But before we do that, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about the questions that I keep getting is what inspired you to write a book? And the inspiration is in this room. My nieces and nephews have always been my inspiration, and I wanted to leave my legacy to them. So it all started with the laser lectures, which many of you have already seen, this list of 47, and I sat down one day to say, okay, I'm going to write a book about these laser lectures. Well, it's hard to remember 47 laser lectures, so they quickly turned into the 7 acts of leadership. My first attempt at writing a book, those are keywords, first attempt, was to take the 7 acts and turn that into a book. And I had a woman whose name is Farrah Warner. She's not here today, but she worked with me to help me put together a book that was based on those 7 acts of leadership. So there were 7 chapters, as you would expect, each chapter describing the act and demonstrating the value of each act. We worked for months, and at the end of this hard work that we put together, Farrah said to me, "Your book's okay, and it will support your consulting business. But I think that you have a story inside of you, that if you found it to tell that story, it would be a benefit to your readers." And I said, do I really want to start over? I'm not sure. And she said, I just took a job in New York City, so if you decide to rewrite your manuscript, good luck with that, and I hope you can find somebody to help you that's local. Ouch. Somebody said ouch. It was ouch. So I stared out the window for a couple weeks, and then I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And my book can't be okay. My book has to be better than that. It has to be the best that it can be. Otherwise, I won't be a good role model to my nieces and nephews. So I pulled out a clean sheet of paper, and I started to write down chronologically my life, and when did I learn those leadership lessons, and what was it about those 7 acts that really enabled me to be the successful businesswoman that I am today. And that's what that book would have to be about. So months went by, and I actually found a writing coach, who is Linda Ange. Where is she? A local writing coach. She was part of my Toastmasters club. And she helped me stay focused. She said, why are you telling this story? Does it lead to something? And all of that helped me to keep that story tight. What did she call it? Throw away, kill the darlings, right? Farrah was teaching me to let my writings breathe, and Linda had taught me how to kill the darlings, the things that I thought that were so important to be a part of that, but yet it didn't lead me to that objective, so we took them out. And then, one of the interesting parts of this whole process was my copy editor, Dave Mesri. And Dave and I started to work together after Linda. I didn't know anything about book writing, but I found out about it when Dave started. We started this ping pong match. That's what I would call it. He would send me edits, tracking mode, and then he would give me comments, and this, do you really want to say that? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What color was that car? How old was it? And I'm like, I don't really care about all of this. Can't we just get the book done? So we went back and forth, and it was an interesting experience for somebody like me, and I was so thankful to have him be part of my team. It was incredible. What a guy. I mean, I would work with him again. I don't know, what's our next book going to be, Dave? We'll let Linda tell us, yeah. So I obviously have taken a lot of people on this ride with me, and you're going to hear from a few of them, just a few of them right now. What I've asked them to do is share just a short passage of the book with you. So they'll come up here and they will explain who they are. And Linda, do you want to go first? And then just to set up your passage and then share it with everyone. Do you want to skip rope this?
I will be reading from chapter 8, starting on page 73, if you'd like to follow along. This is the chapter on communication in the digital world. And the reason I chose this particular passage is because as a writer I am very, very aware of how easily we can misconstrue people's words and how our words can get us into big trouble. And what Michelle says in this passage will help all of us to stay on track. One of my first homework assignments for my master's degree was to critique an external corporate communication. I figured it would probably be a boring quarterly earnings report. Instead, I learned a valuable lesson in how the digital revolution was changing communications inside and outside the workplace. I woke up one morning to find a memo written by my boss's boss's boss, the company's chief information officer, on the front page of the local business newspaper. The reporter described the memo as negative, autocratic, and harsh. I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm sure our CIO felt the same way. Still, I was thrilled to be delivered this A+ material on a silver platter, albeit at his expense. Our CIO was getting resistance from his leadership team. After a frustrating meeting with his staff, he fired off an email to his staff, threatening them to get on board with a major company reorganization or else. In the style of traditional leadership, he expected them to fall in line like good corporate soldiers. I learned 4 things from our CIO's mistake. Number 1, email is not the right medium for reprimands or inspirations. The risk of misunderstanding is far too great. Number 2, never attempt to communicate during an emotionally charged moment. If it gets emotional, shut up. It's always a good idea to offer a feedback loop so recipients have a way, other than going to the media, in which to reply. And number 4, always communicate as if you are in public. Thank you.
So I think I have my niece, Jessie's coming up next. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I don't know if I can read the whole thing. I'm gonna try it. This is my Aunt Michelle. I'm Jess Rinke, her niece, and my husband Bart and I helped a lot with the artwork, and we've been through a long journey with Michelle, so I'm happy to be reading a passage for her. My passage comes out of chapter 3, Developing Your Character. And I chose the following passage to read for you because Aunt Michelle and I worked for many hours on creating the owl icon to represent the laser lectures. It's a term Aunt Michelle coined for her lectures, many of which I've received growing up and still find myself sharing with friends and family now. Laser lectures. When the kids called me, I listened. In some cases, that was all they needed. Other times, I offered a bit of advice, something without judgment. But my advice had to be easy to remember and immediately actionable. After all, they were just kids, and they have short attention spans. Every once in a while, I would actually say something profound. Amazed at my own brilliance, I would jot it down on a doodle page and toss it in a hanging folder inside an antique metal cabinet I got from Rick's aunt and uncle when they retired. As the years passed, I began to recognize reoccurring themes. The folder expanded. Each time a call came in, I listened while I searched through the sticky notes, envelopes, and journal pages, seeking an opportunity for reuse. The natives were on to me before I realized it. I knew this because Bethy, one day, called because her brother Johnny told her she had to call and ask me for the lecture on surrounding yourself with people you admire. The rest of the laser lectures are in the book, but I've grown up with them, and I do use them on people, so hopefully you can help Michelle make some more laser lectures.
I got this. Thanks, Aunt Michelle. I just want everybody to know my sister Jessie has a horrible fear of standing up in front of people, so I'm very proud of what she does. So I'm Beth, as Jessie said before, Jessie's older sister, middle of 5 children that Aunt Michelle frequently lectures. And I'm going to read a passage more towards the end of the book, chapter 10, Paying Your Dues. And I chose this specific area just because at this particular moment in my life, it kind of rings true for the line of work that I'm going into and what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And I think it's a good lesson. So, being a consultant was complicated, or can complicate things at work. Instead of having one boss, you have 2, the client organization and the professional services firm. Nope. The objective was to get the customized system built using client business resources, my firm's client service resources, and a team of mainframe programs from competing staffing company. My client was Matt. He was my single point of contact for a project originally scheduled to last 10 months. It didn't take long for me to wonder where my loyalties aligned. Was I supposed to serve the best interests of my client? Or my firm, sorry, lost it. My client was understaffed, and I could see that Matt wouldn't be ready to accept support of the new system by the proposed launch date. If I waited to raise the issue until closer to launch, Matt would have little choice other than to extend the contract. This would result in additional revenues for my firm, but if I raised the issue early, my client would have choices and could take action and move internal resources around. However, this would mean a lost opportunity for the firm. I didn't know what to do. I posed the question to Ryan, although I knew he wasn't objective. If you do what's right for, and this is what Ryan says, I'm skipping around a little bit. If you do what's right for the client, he said, it'll be the right thing for the firm. Ryan felt that honest and transparent communication leads to a long-term relationship and ultimately continued revenue. It was because of Ryan's mentoring that I discovered the concept of servant leadership. The term coined by Robert Greenleaf described a leadership style in which a leader serves first and leads second.
This is my husband, for those of you who don't know.
Thank you. I selected a short passage from the book to read today regarding leadership behavior. Now, Michelle, not only considers to be one of the 7 acts of leadership, but also to be the key to leadership. I chose to share this reading because of a connection it has to another woman with whom I could not have a closer bond, and that was my mother. As I was growing up, I would witness the effect of this behavior on our family, on my mother's friends, on her bosses, on her employees, and even on her adversaries. The key to leadership. Rick's mom, Virginia, was retired from Michigan Bank, where she spent 37 years serving their customers as a teller, a supervisor, and eventually an assistant vice president. I wondered if she had any pearls of wisdom to share. What was the key to your career success, I asked. Her response, I cared about people. I quietly waited for her to say more. Was that it? I expected her to say it was her knowledge of banking, financial management, or her supervisory skills. To her, the answer was simple, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. She explained that caring about people isn't about giving presents or doing things for them. It's about listening with your heart, not just your ears. It's about empathy. It's about giving hugs and letting tears flow, even if you're at work. It's about sharing your thoughts and feelings as a remedy, not as a burden. It is about being authentic and trustworthy.
Okay, Dave Mesri would like me to read a passage which I don't think I can read without crying, which is not the one I prepared to read. So, Dave, I usually do exactly what you say, so I'll do it. Come on. Look, it's gonna be. All right, you gonna read it?
I'll read this one.
Yay!
I'm Dave Mesri. I was Michelle's copy editor on this book. I'm also an only child, which is why this passage really resonated with me, and it was a real pleasure moments ago to meet Michelle's sister, Mary, in the back of the room. Mary, stay away from the cake. Not ready for the cake just yet. This was when Michelle and Mary took a trip out west, and I found it particularly, it's brief, it's on page 12. Our trip out west brought us together as adults. Our family policy growing up had been to hide our feelings, to ignore conflict, and to sweep things under the rug. But we were on an adventure now, just the two of us, headed west to bask in the beauty of America's national parks. It was liberating. For the first time, we openly talked about our childhoods, sharing stories both happy and sad. Together, we were questioning why and why not. We talked about religion, politics, and family secrets. By the end of our vacation, I was no longer the little sister and Mary the big sister. We were women doing the best we could with the cards we'd been dealt. We returned home not just sisters, but friends.
Dave, thanks for reading that. Okay, this is it, this last one, then we'll get back to signing and having a party and eating things and eating cake with underpants on it, which probably is everyone's first time of eating cake with underpants on it. I hope, anyway. What's up with the underpants anyway, right? I mean, that's what everybody's wondering, and so you know that the underpants, pack an extra pair of underpants, is one of the laser lectures. So if you visited over to the laser lecture competition challenge area, you know that that is. Now what does that mean, pack an extra pair of underpants? So I'm going to tell you. I got to put my glasses on. Yeah, I'm getting old. Somebody reminded me, today's my birthday, yay! So let me explain. We just set this up. There's a long setup, so I'll just tell you. This actually happened. It was a Sunday night, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine, and she was packing her bags. She's had to catch a flight to the West Coast, and she was going out to save a troubled project. The project manager had been thrown off the client site, and she's like, "What am I going to do?" Well, I had run out of ideas to give her, and I started to think about what Rick's mom had told me, and I said this to her. Excuse me. Okay, wait, I said. Forget about the project for a minute. Just forget about it. Tomorrow you're going to sit down one-on-one with the client and just listen to his story. Really, listen to him. you to know what his fears are. Don't defend the company. Don't make excuses for the project manager. Just listen. You have to really care about him as a person first, and then the rest will take care of itself. I was so compelling. I actually believed myself. There was no doubt that my friend needed courage to pull this off. On one hand, it could end up being a career-limiting move, followed by months of testimony in court. On the other hand, it could result in a recovered engagement, possibly a lifelong relationship, maybe even a promotion. It was a risky approach, but it was the only advice I had at the time. Before I hung up, I said, "You better pack an extra pair of underpants, because if he doesn't throw you out of the customer site, you'll be spending more time there than you planned." And from that moment on, pack an extra pair of underpants became our secret code for show you care. So enjoy yourselves for a few minutes here. At 4 o'clock, we'll try and stay on schedule. 4 o'clock, we will have a competition. I'm looking for 3 more laser lectures. I cannot have 47 laser lectures. We're looking for an even 50. So submit what you think would be your laser lecture based on the rules, and we will go through them, and I will select 3 with your help. So enjoy yourself. I'll be signing.